All right. Well, it is great to be on here with everybody tonight. I'm super excited for what we're going to be doing. And honestly, this gets me really excited because of the impact that it could make in the ripple effect, in the legacy that's going to come out of a lot of the stuff that's going on with those who are really getting some traction with LinkedIn. This kind of was an idea. I think, Anthony, you were kind of one of the first real developers of this idea, pioneers of it. And I know Dave Thomas was on there and a couple different people, Levi as well. And basically, it just developed into this whole new movement of how this industry can build, not just here, not just locally, but around the world. And we've had tremendous results with it. And I think we're one of the only teams that is doing this at this point in this way, if that makes sense. I know some people are onesie, twosie all over the place. But these guys who you're going to hear from tonight are getting good, awesome results. And that's why I have them on here sharing with you guys tonight. We wanted to make this available to whoever has the link to see this, or whoever is on here right now, because we want to help you grow. And obviously, as a community, we're going to grow together. So anyway, I have on here 3 rock stars. We're going to start out with Mr. Ans Gibson. All 3 of these guys are out of Pennsylvania right now, which is a little ironic, but but all amazing people. And Ans has some really good professional background. He, as far as everything that he's got his head on straight, and he really doesn't need an extra little income right now, but he's creating a legacy, a long-term, solid, passive and residual income. And I'm so excited for him because of the steps that he's taking to really solidify his future. And Ans is getting right now about a 90% success rate on, sorry, I'm going to bring it up here. 90% success rate booking the plan after he speaks to these people on the phone. So in other words, once he goes through the process of getting somebody connected with him on LinkedIn and he gets them on the phone, he's having a 90% success rate of booking a plan with them from that. So I'm going to jump right to him and we're going to kind of take it from there. We'll jump over to Levi and Lexi after that. And then Mr. Anthony Sweet will wrap us up tonight. We don't want to have a long call, but we want to have something that you guys can really take lots of notes and go and apply it if you so desire. And I will preface this whole call by the best way to build communities is through people that you already have a connection with. So this is for you to go on the extra. So I always tell people when they're like, how can I have a consistent pattern, a goal that I can do every day? And with LinkedIn, and I said, well, that's perfect because you can start making so many connections a day or so many invitations or whatever, so many messages or calls or whatever, and that'll lead into some great cold contacting. But you always got to remember that the best way to build your business and the fastest and the most secure way to build your business is through people that you already know or somebody in your team already knows. So I just want to put that out there in the first place. But these guys are kicking butt on the cold contacting side of it. So I'm going to jump right over to Ans, and he's going to go through some of the main points to start out why we do what we do with LinkedIn. So take it away, Ans.
All right. Thanks, Zach. Yeah, I love what you said with bringing up, the fact of going through your personal list first, because that is obviously proven to be the fastest growth method possible. So what I like to use LinkedIn for is in the times that we can't be contacting our normal friends and family, for those night crawlers out there that stay up till, 2 a.m., you can be working on your business at all times of day. So I think that's one of the biggest attributes that LinkedIn has going for it, is that you can do it any time of day. And it's something that can be continuous as you go through and grow. So I'd say what you brought up, Zach, is my strongest point right now. And everything I've learned from Anthony. So when you get to him, you're going to see like, okay, yeah, this is where Ann's got all his information from. But I am having great success with, once I have the number, getting them on the phone and then booking a plan from there. And it's something I learned through some real estate training is you want to build rapport like right off the bat. And I've found, the easiest times to do that is when you have someone that has a full profile that you can go through and pick out little things here and there about, okay, I can relate to them here, or, oh, they've been to so-and-so vacation, or just find something about their profile and about them that you can comment or encourage or just bring up as a point of interest. And that way, you go from being a cold call to a friend right away. And I think that is like the number one thing that I've learned myself. As far as once I have the plan booked, then from there, it's just the normal steps and process. But up until that point, it's all a fresh LinkedIn process, which I'm sure Anthony will go through a little better than me. But anytime I can't get them to sit down one-on-one face-to-face, if they're in the area, I'll go for a Zoom call then. And then I'll probably promote, Anthony, or if it's a female, I'll promote Sally, just someone that they might be able to relate to. And I'll kind of switch gears and I'll say, oh man, you know what? It sounds like you're busy to meet up. You really need to speak with my mentor, so-and-so. Would you be opposed to getting on a short Zoom call so we can meet face-to-face and we'll show you what we do over the phone or over the computer? And I think that's like a good kind of like backup strategy. And so that I've been getting pretty good results with using those two strategies. So one thing I want to say is this has been a great way to kind of train your brain. When you're sending follow requests and messages, what you're doing is training your brain to think in law of averages, right? Not that everyone's a number. You want to pay attention to their profile and who they are as a person. But what you're doing is you're going through the numbers time and time again, night after night, follow, and then message. And then what happens when, it's great because it kind of reduces any negative feedback you might get, especially now that they put these little like auto suggestion conversation buttons, because now it's like a lame negative response that just says no thanks and then you move on. So it's really kind of like the intro to getting over that fear of talking to people, getting over the hump of being rejected. And it kind of trains your brain into all of a sudden it's so much easier now to call someone or see someone face to face. And like any rejection is no big deal because you've already gotten 100 LinkedIn no thanks rejections. And so it's great just to kind of work that into your system. So that's just one thing I was thinking about earlier. I don't know if you had any other specific questions for me, Zach.
No, that's great, Ans. And one of the biggest things, I think you can touch on this as well, Ans, is having that abundance mindset, but also like setting yourself up for success. So what are some of the things that Anthony taught you for your profile specifically to set yourself up as a professional that people want to connect with?
Okay, that's a great question. First, like the most important thing is to look like a real person, right? Because there's so much spammers out there and so many like fake profiles on not necessarily on LinkedIn, but other social media. So it's very key to look like a real person that's active in whatever he or she is doing. So whether it's, your skills, articles is a huge thing that I'm just trying to get into now. I think I've written one, but Anthony's really good at that. And you can see, if you go to Anthony's page, you'll see dozens of articles with comments and interactions. And it just shows you that it's a current person that's striving to do what they're doing at that moment. You don't want to like have anyone kind of think, oh, well, they're, they don't ever come on here. It's like a ghost town on their page. So look like a real person and look active. And also show what you stand for, either as a person or not politically or anything like that, but what your mindset is at the time. And that's why I like to show like a focus on growth. Because it's something that people that are going to be excited about this, they're going to see that and have just some kind of interaction about that. And it's going to be an easy rapport building subject. So I wrote an article about self-directed education. I think you can actually join the Life as Your Experience, the Life Leadership Group. If you want to put that on there, it's a great added experience kind of to your online resume. So, but yeah, I would say those are the two most important things.
Awesome. That's great. And one last question for you. So what is the point of LinkedIn? Like if somebody's on LinkedIn, why are they there? What is the main point of their purpose? And how can you leverage that then to make that connection?
Yeah, I think most people are on LinkedIn to grow their network. And well, see, there's a misconception. I think a lot of people think it's for finding jobs only. They think it's like a careerbuilder.com or something like that. That's only like, here's my online resume. Now let me look for companies and look at me. You know, like it's not only to market you for jobs. I think that's where a lot of people kind of, and I honestly, Zach, that's probably why not many people use this how we're using it. But there are a lot of great professionals that are there to network either for sales for their companies or if they have their own business or something. But I think that's probably the main thing. And so where we can come in and say, you know, well, they'll be happy to expand their network for one, just to connect. So connecting is no big deal. I've never had anyone, you know, get offended at a connect request. So everyone will accept. And then from there, it's just a matter of showing, hey, I can add value to either your company or who you are. And we can come together, and I don't know what's going to make sense, but we can talk about it and maybe we can mutually benefit each other. And I think that's the most important part.
That's awesome. Great answers, and thank you so much for being on. I know you didn't have a lot of time tonight, but we really appreciate your wealth of wisdom as you're really PDCA in this in a big way. And I think one of the biggest things you said that we should all take away from tonight is this dilutes the negative, because your law of averages, you get into this abundance mindset. I know some people, when I help them set up their LinkedIn profile, and I'm like, yeah, let's just go to this city and put in, you know, a specific search target, blah, blah, blah. And by the time day 2 comes around, they have 100 connections and they're like, holy cow, there's 100 people I never met before and I never would meet. And now there's 100 people that I possibly could make a connection with. And they connected with me, obviously, so there's some kind of connection. And then, hey, what if only 40 of them respond to a message? And what if only 20 of those get on a phone call? And what if only 10 of those see the plan? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, that's way more than if you're just sitting at home saying, I don't have a list. You know? So it's just a great way to jump into it. So
can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead, Ans.
Let me just say that I've tried a lot of shortcuts. And, you know, whether it's JavaScript codes or anything to auto-friend people. And actually, there's a funny thing. My girlfriend was at work and she worked with a bunch of realtors. And apparently I auto-requested all of them. And what my program would do is it would, as soon as they would accept, it would pop up with the message like in a second. So it looked like I was on the computer like a weirdo waiting for them to respond. So I don't recommend any of the shortcuts that I've tried. Anthony's going to talk a lot about how you can really look for key people just to keep it personal, and he's really great at that. So I just want to let you guys know that shortcuts aren't always the best here.
That's great. Yeah, and that's a great point as well. I know when I get like messages like that, when I connect with somebody and the first thing that comes up is a 6-paragraph message about their business and the loan they want to give me and blah, 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 I don't even look at it because it just does not even interest me. But if somebody answers me after 2 days or 3 days, I'm like, or sends an introductory message after 2 or 3 days, I'm like, oh, they're real. They're people that are getting on their computer, looking at my profile. And that's another thing, is you can see who looks at your profile, right? So looking at my profile and going, I saw Anthony was looking at mine today and I got a little nervous. I'm like, oh boy, I'm going to have to change mine all up too. But you know, it's just great because that gives you the ability to be real, like you said. And that's what everybody's yearning for, is a real human connection. And LinkedIn is just a way to create that. And that's why as few, and these guys are going to talk about this, but as few messages you can have before you actually get on the phone call or have a Zoom call or meet with them in person, the better, because they want connection. They want to be in contact. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing about community, is people just want to be with people. So anyway, great job, Anne. Thanks so much for sharing. Let's jump over to Levi and Lexi. And these guys have had some awesome success as well. Some of you guys know about some of the success. And it's just, if you look at the law of averages, it's crazy how these guys, I also want to put this out there because some people will get on this call and hear this training and think, man, I can connect with 7 people and I'm going to go life coach, and that's just not how it works. I was talking, I forget who it was that said about, I think it was Ans or maybe Levi was saying about all the calls he's made. And I thought, man, that could blow somebody out if it was people they knew, but these are all people he doesn't even know. So it's just, it's just cold calls, but it's from a connection that he already made, and he created that curiosity and got their phone number and so forth. And so basically, where I'm going with that is just the fact that if you get to a point where you have a couple people like Levi and Lexi had one guy in Raleigh, North Carolina get started that didn't end up doing anything except for talking to his brother about it. And his brother was in Puerto Rico, and that brother led to over 50 people at a seminar in Puerto Rico when we never had a seminar in Puerto Rico. And then, God forbid, 2 hurricanes pass over and knock them out just like that. But these guys I've been talking to the ones that have communication means, and they're all, in a mindset of, as soon as we can get ourselves out of the craziness, we're ready to rock and roll, and people in our country need hope. And all of that happened because of a LinkedIn contact. And so Levi and Lexi have had professional athletes, they've had life coaches and CEOs and all kinds of people connect with them, and they're getting some really great results with it as well. So I'm going to jump over to them and kind of give them the reins on, adding to, how do I build my profile? How do I, who am I supposed to be targeting as far as when I do go out and start making invitations and start sending out some connection requests? And then what's the next step after that? So go ahead, Levi. I think Lexi's going to take the second half because she usually follows up for you and after you get the connection. So go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, she's kids don't like to be quiet when you need them to be quiet. So she's running around. But anyways, it's so exciting, LinkedIn. I love what Ans was saying and what Zach is saying. It just builds the law of averages and builds your belief. I think the biggest thing is back when we were just opening in South America and Central America, we got really excited about it. It was, I believe, me, Anthony, and Dave Thomas got really excited because we're like, oh, we're going to go international. This is going to be awesome. And then Zach's like, well, I'm moving down to Peru. I'm like, perfect. And so it was just, it is a journey. I'm going to tell you that right now. Don't expect to get instant results if you haven't been building your profile and you haven't had coaching, because there's always a buildup in anything. Just like Anthony has, I'm going to leave the profile building part to Anthony because he is a professional and he is amazing at it. And I can't put hands on that profile because Anthony is the best at that. But as far as, I think the systematic approach that we've kind of come up with is, me and Lexi are trying to do this as a team now, because at first it was me trying to do everything and Lexi figuring out where she fits into there, because we're not going out every night showing the plan. It's more like Lexi was left out of loop and she was like, you know what, this sucks. So we're gonna figure something out, because I'm not getting left behind. I want to be in the process and I want to be in the fight. And so the process that we've figured out is really, we connect with them, and just like Ann said, you don't send them a message as soon as they connect. You don't be like, hey, because that's scary. And so, I mean, I get the notifications on my phone and I'm like, oh, cool. And I want to, but it's like, I don't want to be a creep. And that's key, because just like Zach was saying, they want the connection, but they don't want to be hounded. They want a real relationship if you're going to try to build a real relationship, if that makes sense. Because with that, I mean, I've gotten all kinds of requests from people, and they're just like, hey, there's this, and this one guy, I'm not going to go into specifics, but he was like hitting me with all this stuff, and I'm like, no, I'm not really interested. And he's like, well, what about this, and what about this, and what about this? And it's like, That's not attractive. The biggest thing that we're creating is curiosity. And that's why our contacting script is like the way it is. That's why when we do contact, we're looking to book a meeting, not show the presentation. That's why whenever me or Lexi gets on the phone with somebody, we create curiosity and a place that they might fit. And so with that, a little systematic approach that I've done is I connect with them, and maybe a couple days later, I send them a message, and then if they respond, then I will send them a message based on what they said and pretty much say, hey, when do you have some time for a quick chat? And so with that, that's when I turn it over to Lex if I can. And if it's a woman, I always try to get Lexi to get on the phone with her, because that has been a turning point in our success, because where I am very business oriented or very to the point, or hey, we're getting on this call to talk about this, not you. Lexi is very opposite, where she's very relational, and I am learning. I'm getting better at it. Lexi's very relational, and we've actually had a jump in success when it's just been a different kind of success, where I could pretty much get anybody on the phone to a Zoom or face-to-face. But now Lexi's almost putting them in a position where they're ready to sign up by the time I get on a Zoom without sharing hardly any information. And I'm going to turn it over to her for the phone call in a second. But the system that I've created is connect, a couple days later, send them a message. If they respond, get a time to talk on the phone, get the phone, set up the one-on-one or the Zoom if you're not there, and then connect them to an open meeting or a seminar. And that's kind of where it transitions. And it can be that quick. Like sometimes I've had to jump steps, and I don't recommend this because you need that personal connection first. But I've jumped spots to where instead of personal meeting or a Zoom, go to the open, and that's worked, but it's not as effective because they don't have that personal connection and they don't feel tied to someone. And so I'm going to turn it over to Lex for a minute on how she does her call. And it's really awesome. So go ahead, Lex.
I'm just seeing these chats too. Or we not?
Somebody's going to have to facilitate the messages if we're supposed to get those questions, because I can't see them for some.
Nope. Don't worry about the questions. Nope.
All right. So you just want me to go through what I do with the call?
Yeah, whatever you feel.
So calls, first of all, I don't want to say first of all, with LinkedIn, don't think that this is some alien, totally different learning curve you have to learn. The principles of connecting and showing the plan are all the same across the board. Like, we're still making a friend, finding a need, transferring a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's, if we don't do that, then we're not going to be effective in what we're doing. And, LinkedIn is going to take you through a lot more numbers than you would with, say, warm contacts. But if you're not making a friend, finding a need, and transferring a feeling, you're going to go through huge amounts more people, and we've done both.
Absolutely.
So for us, you'll have to figure out for you what works best. But for us, usually it works out great for me because Levi's not available during the day, but I am. Sometimes I have to run out of the room and shut the door because the baby's hollering a little bit or something, and I'm trying to finish up a call because she's supposed to be sleeping. So it is a little chaotic, but basically what I do is I hop on the phone, I introduce myself, I ask them first, hi, is this so-and-so? And then I say, my name is Lexi and I tell always, I don't ever assume that they know my name. I always tell them where I'm from. You have been in contact with my husband, Levi Lukanen, through LinkedIn about, if he says life leadership, or I say about financial literacy, or whatever wording he's used, I say that. So I do a clear introduction so they know exactly who I am. And then I, from there, will just start asking general questions. This is just like a one-on-one. That's really how I treat it. I just ask them about their self, about the weather. Like, since I've been in Michigan, I've really been asking a lot about the weather down in Raleigh, that kind of thing. And from there, I can kind of feel out what personality they are. So this is a little trick of the trade, like figure out their personality. I'll make your conversation go a lot easier. So if they're sanguine, they're going to answer with a lot of colorful language and tell you about the weather for 10 minutes. If they're choleric, they're going to say, it's nice, or something like that. So you got to kind of feel them out for where they're at. And then from there, I ask, about their family, or about their business experience, what they do. A lot of times Levi's messaging them, so I'm just honest with them. I'm like, I've seen some of your profile, but not a bunch of it, because Levi's been the one talking to you and doing that end of things. So tell me about yourself. Tell me about your story. And we'll go into that. And if I get a pause, or, depending on if they're a really cleric person and I can tell already, I'll already preface the call. And I'll say, after I ask how the weather is or whatever, I'll be like, well, hey, so what I want to do is, because my husband's been the one messaging you, I want to get to know you, learn your experience and stuff like that, get to know you as a person. And then after that, I'm going to give you just a brief overview of our company and what we do. And if it sounds like something you'd like to learn more information about, we'll talk about the next steps. Does that sound good? And they're all like, yeah, that's great. And so then I just start talking about them. I ask about their business experience. I ask about their family, things that would, so they know that you're trying to get to know them and their character as a person and how they, what their skill set is. You're not just asking questions, for the heck of it. You're being intentional with what you're saying. And this is going to feel different for everybody. I'm comfortable talking about family because I'm a mom of 2 kids. And so if they bring up kids, I'm going to relate to that and be able to talk to them about it. But asking them about stuff that you're going to be comfortable having a smooth conversation. Mm-hmm. And I know I'm doing a lot of explaining, but this really does go very quickly. I'm bright, brief, and out of there. Like, if it starts going past 15 minutes of them talking, I will, if they pause or anything, or we have a pausing one, I say, well, I really want to respect your time. So I just want to give you a brief interview. And it's never the same when I start talking about the business. With each conversation, you really have to feel out, like, if they want to talk and they need to talk. For example, there was a lady that I talked to off of LinkedIn who had just got laid off. She needed a friend. And so I ended up talking to her for more like 45 minutes. And so you really have to feel it out. She just needed to talk to somebody. And doing that, don't let it feel like, I'm never going to get to explain the business to them. Like, that is the business. You making a friend is the business. And that's what we do. We're trying to make an impact on people's lives. So if we don't know about their lives, then it's never going to happen. So then after that, I share, this is what I'm comfortable with over the phone. So I don't share anything that they have to picture visually as far as the 45-year plan, anything like that. Anything that they have to visualize, I'd rather share on a Zoom. So over the phone call, all I share is what we do, and obviously some of this depends on, one lady that I talked to was really into charity. So I talked more about Life on Life, but I talked about, we serve people in 3 areas. And then I talk about Life on Life, I talk about the green box, and I talk about a business opportunity to make money. And it's very brief. I go into a few details on, I share testimony of myself or somebody else, depending on what their story is and who they would relate to. And then after that, I say, is that something you feel like you would like to learn more information about? And let me tell you, if I get them on the phone 9 times or 8 times out of 10, they're going to be on a Zoom. And so then I'm like, okay, well, these are the openings that my husband has. I'll be on to meet you. And then I book the Zoom. And then after that, we go through that step then together.
Mm-hmm.
Is that good, Zach? Anything else?
Yeah, and just to add to that, it really, to preface the call is really huge for some people, because instead of them getting on the call and being like, well, what did I get myself into? You're saying, all right, I'd like to be honest with you and upfront. This is what we're going to do today. I want to hear more about you, and pretty much make a friend, find a need, transfer the feeling. And so with that, I want to hear more about your story and what you're passionate about. And I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Second, I'm going to give you a brief overview. Third, we'll see if it's a good fit. And if it is, we'll take the next step. And so it's really a simple thing, but people appreciate that. I actually had somebody really thank me multiple times saying, I really appreciate you prefacing this call, because I'm in recruiting and I hate it when people talk to me forever and I don't know what the call is about still. And so that's really important. But I don't know if there's more that you'd like us to share, Zach, or if you had any more specific questions for us particularly.
No, that was great. You guys went through exactly what I was thinking. And the biggest thing that you guys really hit on the head, and I want people to get this, is that you are not a recruiter. You're not a salesperson. You're a community builder. That's what we are. That's who we are. And if you understand what Oren talks about with that, that doesn't mean we just need to get power player as quickly as we can. It means how many people are we adding to a community that are going to stick? And if it takes a little bit longer to get to that, it's worth the time that it takes. If you don't hit your goal just because this guy isn't ready to get signed up, and yeah, I could push him and get him signed up, but then he's going to be gone forever, it's not worth it. But if we can create that systematic approach, like Levi said, this is probably going to take you time. Don't expect to go power player off of LinkedIn contacts the first time around, right? But if you look at like Anthony, who I'm going to go to next, 11% of his team now is from cold contacts on LinkedIn, which that would be a little tiny bit if he had a tiny team, but he is a pretty massive team, right? And so 11% of his teammates are cold contacts off of LinkedIn, not to mention the people they're bringing on board, and not to mention the house plans they're doing, and not to mention the ripple effect that that's going to bring. So anyway, thank you guys so much for sharing. And I think it's also important to point out that I wanted Levi and Lexi to share this from a couple's perspective, because that's where some of you guys are going to come into this. Some of you are not. Ans does not do this with his girlfriend. He does this by himself. And I know Anthony and Monica bounce off each other, but it's a lot of what Anthony's doing, right? And so it's you find your role in that. And if I know we had a couple questions that we'll kind of go over some of them at the very end. But the biggest thing is, Alex, I know you had a question of how do you know if you're connecting with somebody that is already connected with somebody else in life or something like that. And that happens a lot, just so you know. I like, people tell me, yeah, avoid the people in life or connected to people with life. I'm like, there is no way I'm going to spend all the mental energy to figure out who's connected with somebody from life. It's not worth my time. So the answer, very frankly, and just like Anthony texted me, here's the answer. The contact will tell you if they've already been contacted. So don't worry about if you're contacting somebody, because there are people like myself. I've connected with thousands of people and haven't said anything to them about anything yet. And so if somebody else comes along and contacts them and gets them signed up, is that not okay? Of course not. That's okay. That's fine with me. I didn't know him as much as they didn't know him. You know what I mean? So it's just who's taking that initiative and who's moving forward. So anyway, we'll attack some of these questions. I know, Lynn, you had a great question as far as if the paid plan or the upgrade or the free plan is better. in our experience and all of our experience, the free plan is way more than enough. You can do the paid plan and you're going to spend money on it. And if you're not using it, you're going to feel like you're wasting money probably. And with the free plan, me as not even one that's going on and using it a lot of the time, am connecting with thousands and thousands of people around the world. So I don't believe that an upgrade is necessary. When we put this on YouTube, we got to make sure that the LinkedIn people don't see this, that I was telling you guys not to spend money on their upgrade. But anyway, I'm going to jump over to Anthony, and I'm actually going to show a couple of things real quick on the screen that he asked to show. And then let's see here. I'm just going to do it this way because I want you guys to get an idea of what he's going to be talking about. And then he'll kind of go into some of the thinking behind it. So one thing I want you guys to get is there should be a drop-down system. Everything we do is systematic. And just like Lexi said, the principles of contacting are universal. It's not about doing something different with LinkedIn than you're doing with your your warm contacts or family or whatever. It's all the same. You make a friend, you find the need, you transfer a feeling. So what I asked Anthony was, okay, so what are some of the scripts, quote unquote, that you've used to be able to create interest and to be able to get a response and to be able to, obviously you guys, it's not hard to go on your profile, build your profile up, which is what Anthony's going to talk about, start targeting areas or titles or whatever, skills or whatever, and start, connecting with those people. That's not hard. The hard part is, okay, how do we get that person that I'm now connected with to now start engaging in conversation, right? And so I'm going to show you 3 different messages here, and then I'm going to let Anthony kind of take it away on the thinking behind them. But this one, most of these resulted in signups or, will in the near future. So this one, Jason, I'm looking for a sharp individual with some influence who would be open to the idea of helping host a financial fitness class out of their place in Bloomsburg. Are you open to additional streams of income? How easy is that, and how great is his answer? Hi, Anthony. I am interested in learning more. Super simple, super easy. And then the second one here for Mr. Charles. Charles, thank you for the like. Obviously, Anthony had put something from Magic of Thinking Big. Have you read The Magic of Thinking Big as well? And this started this whole conversation Anthony sent me the other day. I'm like, that's so crazy that a person you don't even know, because you're creating engagement, is now starting a conversation with you. And the last one here, Dan, glad to be connected. I'm working with families and individuals in Allentown to build up their financial security, eliminate debt, and tackle the time and money issue. Could I bounce a few thoughts around with you? Super easy. Hi, Anthony. Sure, give me a call. I'll be glad to help you out. Right? Just very easy, very great answers because of the posture Anthony's having. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Anthony. You want to keep this on the screen for now, and then you can kind of walk through these? Go ahead, bud. Oh, I think you're unmuted. Maybe not.
Good?
Yep. There we go.
I'm frozen. I don't know if it was that frozen. You guys frozen.
I can see everybody moving,
Okay.
so hopefully it's just
sorry. Okay, because mine's frozen. So really cool. Thanks for sharing that, Zach. And the first thing that comes to mind when I'm looking at these, this is what I specialize in. I love having, right from the audio by Mark and Christine Militello, intentional conversations. Right? Like I want to drive results with conversations, and sometimes it's not the results I'm looking for. You got to tweak it to the person you're speaking with. So out of the contacting pack, you're going to learn a ton of these principles. And I highly suggest, if you haven't listened to Intentional Conversations, I'd start there before you message somebody, because you're going to learn a lot of things that will save you a lot of time. The other part on that, before I dive into this, is, man, Holger, at the Pennsylvania seminar this past weekend, he said this, and it hit so well. He said, you can't fail, you can only quit. And he talked about, if you roll a die, right, you roll your dice and, it goes through 1 through 6. And he showed the probability of, if you continue rolling that die, you're eventually going to pop up a 6. There's no way you can't if you keep rolling that die. And so it's really cool. Like with LinkedIn, you don't know how many, conversations it's going to take till, you bring somebody on board. And the one with Jason Ellis here, I was just looking for results. Like, I'm looking for builders, and that was where that message came from, is I'm looking for somebody that's ready to just go. And LinkedIn is a great place to find people with ambition. So you'll see here in the message, I'm looking for a sharp individual with some influence. So the cool thing about that is Jason is actually on the team. I'm going up with to meet with him to do his first business launch Thursday in Bloomsburg. So the cool thing is people on LinkedIn, they're professionals, right? And they're looking for advancement, right? There's two things. When I went through a lot of LinkedIn training at my work, we had a lot of different companies come in and train us in different aspects. And the common ground was always, there's two reasons why people are on LinkedIn. The first one is a lot of executives and high-end professionals are on there because of the relevant content in their profession, right? So they're looking for content, professional content. The second one is they're looking for career change, whether it's at their current company, trying to get connected with that next level up, so they look good and get promoted, or they're literally shopping for other jobs. So knowing that in mind, it's not a Facebook, meaning like people aren't on there just spewing their thoughts, whatever comes to mind. It's a network of people who are looking for growth. And knowing that, like, you can find some great talent, but also you can position yourself to look like what they call a thought leader, right? And so we'll go over that a little bit. So that first message, you're looking for, people who are ambitious and ready to rock and roll. And then you go over to Charles. Charles it's a great example. I actually commented on another person's post. And I'll walk through this here in a little bit, but you comment on posts, people are going to see that. And if your comments are professional and thought-provoking, people are going to like those comments. And Charles happened to like a comment on a post I didn't even do. And it was the book, The Magic of Thinking Big. And so obviously there's a reason why he liked my comment out of all the other ones. So I'm going to then send him a connection request and then send him a message. And, like in this particular case, it's okay to send a connection request and send a message right away because there's relevancy there, right? It's not like just a quick spam message. This is like a legitimate, hey, like, you just like my post, you're probably online, I'm online too, let's talk, right? And so anyway, great conversations there. And Zach, what was the third one? I can't see the third one there.
Can you see it now?
Oh, you guys are all frozen on me.
You see it now? It was for
No,
Dan.
My screen's frozen over here.
Okay, Dan Azar. Dan, glad to be connected. I'm working with families and individuals. Yep.
Yeah, so the other part, and this is what Ann Gibson is amazing at, is I've found personally that if I can sign somebody up locally, I'll get more results with them, right? And so if you have an intentional place where you're building, this was just, I was going through, look at that, 1:57 in the morning. I sent this message out to the guy. He replied at 6:35 a.m., right? Because I was looking like, I'm ready to take this team 10 deep in Allentown, right? And so we're looking for people locally that we can go face-to-face with. So you'll notice I referenced that I'm literally looking for individuals in Allentown to make it relevant to that specific individual. So there you see, threw his number at me right away. So I can call up and walk through exactly what Lexi and Levi walked through with you guys, is how do we get them on the phone, right? How can we get them on the phone so then we can set up proper next steps with them? So some really cool stuff there. Zach, can you share, before we go into any questions on that, Zach, any other thoughts?
No, and I just want everybody to understand that this is what you do. When Anthony is speaking here, he's speaking from experience, not from just life, but there was a whole new position created for him at ADP, the international company that he works for, just for him to specifically work with LinkedIn. So everything he's saying here, take a lot of notes, because these are the things that he's been taught through all the courses that he's taken and been certified in a big way. So I really, Anthony, one of the biggest things I want people to understand is this is, and I've said this before, but we can make this systematic. It doesn't have to be, I want everybody to know, I don't know how you guys do it, but I would highly recommend people to have like a Google sheet or something in Excel where you have like, okay, the name of the person and the number, and did I get contact first, when did I connect with them? How to blah, 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 and have all these little categories and really take a very good inventory. This is your business. You've got to treat this like a business. It's not a hobby. And just like Anthony said, he's super zoned in and lasered in on places where he wants to build, and it's getting great results. So anyway, go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I'd say the other thing, like how you message is so important. It really is, especially on LinkedIn, because you can really turn people off if you're a spammer, like tremendously, where, it's not good. And this is a professional network. Just think if you were, I don't know, and this is corporate America talk, but if you were walking in with the executives of a business, what type of conversations would you be having, right? Like that's where LinkedIn is. It's the greatest, to me, the greatest social network place in the world, like to have real professional conversations. So keep it legit. And the best book to read on that, I love this book. I teach this to everybody I talk to that wants to explore LinkedIn. It's the book, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling by Frank Bettger, one of our top 5 books. And specifically, and Oren says this all the time, people do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. So how are you able to show them that you care before you tell them all about how amazing your company is and how amazing you are, right? And so in the book, he talks specifically about, and when I read this, it just blew my mind, because I was always trained as a salesperson to talk about the benefits of your company and you, right? And so when I read that book, it just blew me away. And there's a specific example in there where he made the biggest deal of his entire career in a guy's office, and the guy signed the check and did not even know what company he worked for. There is a lot to be said about that. So I started applying that at my career at the company I work for, and I started getting crazy, crazy results. And I got off the phone with many CEOs of companies that have over 1,000 employees, like big time companies. They didn't even know who I worked for, and they wanted me in their office, right? And it's because of that book and what it teaches. So if you can take that book as well as intentional conversations and apply it, that's all we need to say about contacting. Like just do those 2 things and you will have success. So outside of contacting, prime example, there's a gentleman in St. Lucia that I connected with and sent a message, and he joined, and we did a Zoom, followed the system. He got part of the team, and his number one reason that he told me that I was like, so why did you reply to my message? And he goes, it wasn't even your message. He goes, I saw you had like 11,000 followers, and I knew you must be some sort of great professional. But it's because I set up my profile the correct way. If I wouldn't have a great profile, and it's not me, like I went through very, very specific training on how to set up your profile from a buyer's perspective. So if you want to go on there and look at it and kind of take, ideas off of it, you don't need to have it perfect. But the more professional that you have it, the better off, people are going to really respect you. So yeah, Zach, if you want to bring it up, and I'll just walk through this real fast for you guys. But the first thing is do you notice that underneath my name, it does not say my actual position. It talks about what I do, right? And when they trained us on this, it was because when you're commenting on post, they don't see Anthony Swede was a sales representative. No, they see Anthony Swede enhances organizational human capital management strategies. Now, you might not know what that means, but my buyers do, right? And so they will reach out to me because they want that part of their company enhanced. So put not your position, but the impact that you're looking to make, right? And so if you look at the headshot, we got trained really, really extensively on getting a professional. And they said, like, don't just do like your square shoulders, right? Like your old school professional picture, do a new school, like make it. I know Lexi is an amazing photographer. So if you know a photographer, go get a professional picture done and get that on there, because it will make a difference, like tremendously. Scroll down. The next one here is your, oh, yeah, right there under summary. What they trained us for on this was more geared up to put it in the buyer's perspective again. Don't write about necessarily you and your company, so to speak. Put it more in the buyer's perspective of, you know, when they read this summary, do they feel compelled to talk to you? Right? Like, how are you positioning yourself to them? You know, so put, you know, what you're really bringing to the table. And then at the bottom, underneath, feel free to reach me at, Zach, if you can scroll down. See all these keywords? This is called search engine optimization. So if somebody was to go on LinkedIn and type in their search talent, or it says labor spend, my profile will actually jump up in front of anybody else's, because I have it multiple places on my profile. So there's a thing called search engine optimization. You probably won't have too many people going out there specifically looking for you, but that's just in some view, you can pop up there. The other thing is have media. Okay, you'll see there, like Life Leadership on Twitter. That was the video that they did for us. Some of this other stuff, I put Orrin Woodward's Invest in Your Mind, and then other stuff for the company I work for. But people literally go on and click on that when they're trying to scope out who is this guy. The other part here, this part is crucial. If you can get this down, you'll probably have more context than you know what to do with. And this is where Ann said it best, talking about the content that you share. And see, it says see 20 more articles. Like, I go on there and I write my own thoughts. And the reason being is this is, in a research, it showed that 74% of buyers, people going on LinkedIn, that are in any buying mode, when they go to do the research, they're looking to purchase from somebody who's a thought leader. So in our world, you know, we teach leadership, right? We teach finances. So if people are like literally looking to make a financial decision, they're going to go with the person who looks and appears to be a thought leader, which means they have their own thoughts out there. So I know there's a lot of great people writing a lot of great content. I know Chrissy Fritz, you know, Aaron's wife, she's doing her own blogs and stuff now. This is the place to do that. Is in this is where you're posting a long article that sticks to your profile. So it will always be there, right? So they can go learn more about who you are. And then if you want to scroll down to experience, again, you're putting this, if you want to go to you can scroll down to the life one. You're putting this in the buyer's point of view. So I love our new messaging, like financial literacy, getting to the point to where you have a year to 5 years worth of expenses in your savings account. Like, that just blows my mind away. Like, how many people, if you were to reach out to them, have a year to 5 years worth of living expenses in their savings account? You know, where I grew up, not too many. So I noticed that having conversations around that, oh man, like it makes such a big deal. So just putting some thoughts out there around that, and then putting more of your media. Again, you'll see keywords that we put. But yeah, I think if you get those parts of your profile right, the rest will flow. You have your education, your volunteer. But yeah, I think that's where it's at. And then the last piece there, Zach, is the recommendations. I have so many people, when I get them on the phone, they talk about, no way, I saw that Dave, who does LinkedIn training, commented on your profile. And that's who I got my sales certification from LinkedIn from. So he runs a company out of Canada. And so having and giving recommendations is huge. You know, people will look at that stuff. It's like a reference when you're getting a job. You know, they want to know, are you legit? Right? Going back to what Levi and Lexi are talking about. So just having that stuff set up is going to put you in a position to win. You know, and I feel like if you're in this training right now, you're not here to lose. You're here to learn, what can I do to give myself a competitive advantage from trying to grow my, my professional network. Exactly what Levi said. So there's a lot of cool things there. Any questions or anything on that, Zach? Anything you want me to share?
No. So you actually answered some of the questions that people had sent in as far as kind of what kind of things should be showing up, what kind of articles should you be sharing other people's articles? Should you be sharing your own thoughts, that kind of thing, creating your own thought leader process? Who is the biggest, I guess, when it comes to actually booking these calls? And so now, is that what you're going into? Is that your thought as far as going from here?
Yeah.
Go ahead. So biggest thing is who, now you connected with somebody, now you started that conversation, you get them on a call, and Lexi kind of did a great job of saying, this is what you want to do. It's kind of like an interview, but not really. We want to know about you so that we can then tell you a little bit about our company and then see if it's a good fit. Once that happens, what's your next step? Kind of what do you lead into from there?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing, I get them on the phone, not to just get them on the phone, but I want to meet them either face-to-face or a Zoom. And I want it to be as personal as possible. And mainly because in the book, The Speed of Trust, like, you gotta build trust with them. And the best way to do that is sit over coffee, have a one-on-one, because if they're a LinkedIn cold contact, you need to build that rapport with them, and it was really great. We had 2 guests at this last Allentown house plan that came from total cold contacts on LinkedIn. It showed up to a house plan, which is awesome. And it's all about, like, people want to feel part of a real community, and that's kind of where we stand. Is I want to do the best job at getting down and having a real, legitimate, face-to-face, whether it's Zoom or in-person conversation, because at that point, you build the rapport and they will, follow. So.
Cool. Great stuff, Anthony. And there's 2 last questions here. Nanette, great questions and something that we can definitely approach. Who should we leverage for calls if we do not have anyone that is relatable and not all about business? And that's a great question, because it's not about, and Lexi was talking about, and Levi was talking about leveraging people for calls and stuff like that. I think Ann's was talking about that as far as who can he get on the phone with them. And it's really not as much, it's not as much an upline, if that makes sense. It's not as much it has to be somebody up the line. It's more, hey, who in your team that you're working together with on that taproot, whatever it may be, is going to relate to this person, and who can you connect them with, and who do you have that established with already? Because all of us have people in our team that are going to connect better to a doctor, and then all of us have somebody in our team that's going to connect better with a housewife, and somebody that's going to connect better with an IT geek or whatever. I didn't mean that derogatorily. I was like, I don't mean geek in the wrong way, but you guys know what I mean. If I'm not going to connect as well with somebody who talks computer language, if that makes sense. So I'm going to connect with them with somebody who they're going to relate to. And then as far as getting them on a Zoom, just like Anthony just said, get them on a personal Zoom. You want to create a relationship, because if you just get them on Dad's Zoom or whatever, that's great. But if you don't have that personal Zoom first, there's no, like, once they get off of Dad's Zoom, if you haven't already established a connection, it's really hard to then awkwardly get that connection, right? But if you start with that connection and then they get on Dad's Zoom because you broke down all the walls, now it's going to create a whole new set of questions from them, and they're going to open up a lot more because now they're trusting you. There's a speed of trust there because you've already talked to them. So anyway, and last question here. So recommendations, what credentials should we use to get lookers? So here's the biggest thing when you're, and this is the step down. So you get on LinkedIn. Let's just pretend you're not even on LinkedIn. And if you are, and you just don't have a great profile or whatever, let's just pretend you're starting today. So you get on, you get started, you start building your profile up, you get a professional picture, you get a nice little headline picture there. If you see here, each of us, I'm not sharing it anymore, but if you see here, each of the people I have pulled up here, on mine, there's a mountain in the background, and then on Anz's, there's another mountain. I think that's Japan. And then, you know, Anthony has the more that has to do with his, like a desktop, more that has to do with his job. And then you have Levi's here with a little bit of nature. And obviously, I'm sure Anthony could give us some thoughts on why it is that he has something that's not nature. But my biggest point is start building yourself up, and then recommendations and all that kind of stuff. That's something that we've kind of said we were going to do and never really did, but took the time to say, okay, I'm going to go out and take the next hour and recommend Levi and Lexi, and I'm going to recommend Anthony, and I'm going to recommend you know, Ann's, and I'm going to go through and recommend Nanette and stuff like that. And don't just spam it out there, but really take, you know, a good 10 minutes to write something that's professional, that's grammatically correct under somebody else's profile. And what's cool is that actually gives, like if you write a recommendation for me, it's going to give me a reminder to go and write one for you. And how I operate is as soon as I see a notification, if it's not something I can do right now, I mark it unread until I can do it. And then I go and I do it and I get it done, and then it's done. And that's just kind of how I've gotten to the point where I'm more productive. But do that. Go out there and start recommending other people in the team. You know, go just find the people that are in our team and Team Explosion and start recommending and different things that are true, sincere from your heart that you've learned from these people, or seen them grow, or seen them go across stage, or heard them from a training session, or whatever, just to give that little extra edge. And then that's going to be just like we say, once you start blessing people with that, you're going to be blessed in return. And then just some little things I had written down here as far as like when you're about to call somebody, once you've gotten a number, you know, you got your profile down, now you go out and by the way, if you want to see how to, let me do this real quick so you guys can see. If you want to see how to find people, go to My Network up here. And then, man, I haven't done this for a while. Now you guys are going to, so if you're searching, let's just say, there we go. Search for people with filters. I think they changed this around a little bit since last time I did it. But if you go in here, keywords, you can write keywords, first name, last name, title, company, school, connections of, who, locations. You can put in somewhere that you've searched in the past, or you can put in something, or you can add a specific city. You can do all that kind of thing. Current companies, past companies, industries, profile language, nonprofit interests, all the different things, schools, you know, all the different things that you want to filter people through. And then you kind of, like Anthony said, he's focused on Bloomsburg and Allentown, to build up Bloomsburg and Allentown. So you get that creation of a really good organized system. So what I was going toward is that once you get that phone call or that number and you're about to call them, go to their profile and look over their profile. Like Ann said, figure out how you're going to make a friend with this person, right? And I love how Anthony was referring to all the top 5 books and different things where if you haven't gone through those top 5 books in a while, you need to do that if you want to get successful here. Because you've got to learn how to connect with somebody you've never met before. You've never shook their hand. They've never seen your face. You're talking to them on a phone call. You've got to learn how to create some people skills in your life. And that's the only way you're going to get successful at life anyway. So you might as well do it now when you're practicing on people that who cares if they like you or not, right? And I don't want you to have that mentality. But the point is, if they hang up on you, it's not somebody that's down the street from you that you're going to see every day. Right? It's somebody that, okay, out of sight, out of mind, PDCA, I got to change how I approach that and move on. Right? And then the last thing is be organized. Like I said, have a Google Sheet, have something, an Excel where you know, because what you're going to do is you're going to start connecting with thousands and thousands of people, and you're not going to know who did I connect with and who, and a lot of times people slip through your fingers because they said, hey, get back to me in a month or whatever, and you didn't write it down, and then that person's gone, you know, or, you know, you went through and you sent messages out to somebody, and then you realize that in a notification or something that something went on in their life or something. And if you have that all written down, now you can go back and create a conversation through whatever happened in their life. I can't tell you how many times people have started in my business because I was sympathetic to something that happened in their life, sincerely sympathetic. And then they said, yeah, so what's going on with you? And I just talk a little bit about what's going on, and they get started in our team, and now they're rock stars, right? So it's not, you've got to be intentional, and that's what this is all about. So if anybody has anything to wrap up, go ahead, Lex.
So I just wanted to mention one of the thoughts that I had, you know, I was thinking about important things too. First of all, also, when you are making a call, this is just like an appointment. You want to be prompt. Like if you said you're going to call them at 11, you call them at 11, not 11:03 or, 10:58, like it's 11 o'clock. And so I make sure that I'm very, very prompt. It is an appointment. It's important to them and important to me, that kind of thing. The other thing that Levi and I have really gone through, and chime in if you want to, but we specifically, and Anthony and Zach kind of hit this a little bit, Anthony with being directly in Allentown, but you don't want to just target Africa and, for the heck of it. You want to target an area that first of all has an open or has like a connector. Like Levi and I have been doing LinkedIn very heavily because we're not in an area where we're staying right now. So we're doing it in the area where we're moving. So none of you are allowed to do it in the area where we're moving, but you can do it in your own area.
Unless you live there.
Yeah. No, so we've been connecting with people in Raleigh. And also that's a great starter conversation where I'm like, well, we're moving there, and then we can talk about better areas. I found out a lot of great tips and stuff from people. But before that time, if we want to get them connected to Zach, because it's so important, like just like anything else, if they aren't connecting to an open meeting or a person, like Dad says this all the time, if they're not getting into the community, they're lost. You can't even count them as part of your community. So your goal, your whole goal as you're going through these next steps is what is important next and getting them into the community. And I know that was kind of said throughout the whole thing, but I just wanted to really press on that.
Well, just like Lex said, it's very important to plug them into a community since we're building a community. And if you, just like she said, if you're targeting an area that looks nice, you either have to be very willing to
yes,
go, very willing to go there and be very prompt to, you messed me up, Mario, but just like Rick, he had so much success in Jamaica because he was willing to go down there.
Right.
And just like that, if you are not willing to go to this place that you saw and you're like, oh, I'd love a business down there, but you're not willing to go down there, don't expect that business to explode.
Right.
Because it is all about connecting people with a community and a real person. Because if you're just connecting them with webinars, they might love the information, but they're never gonna feel that like they're a part of something. And that's what our biggest thing is. So I just wanted to say that, and if anybody else has anything to chime in or whatever, back to you, Zach.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, we're going to wrap this up because I didn't want this to be real long. But just to answer the last question, Mike and Lynn, do you have a template for organization as far as a Excel? I'm going to actually put that together with some of the masterminding of these guys, and we'll get that out to everybody. I'll send a link of just like an example one or something like that, a PDF, something, so that you guys can see how to set that up, and we'll do that here quickly. And then, or just reading and commenting, interacting. Yes, as far as doing daily post, I don't think daily is the right word, but every once in a while, putting articles up there, putting posts up there. I know for me personally, I don't do a lot on LinkedIn itself, but I have my Instagram linked to LinkedIn. So every time I put a business post or a thought or a quote on Instagram, it goes to my LinkedIn, and I get a whole bunch of likes and comments on LinkedIn, and I didn't even enter the whole, like I didn't even enter the app, but it got automatically sent there. So that's another idea. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I piggyback off? Because this is very important topic. Like there's so much research in what to post. And where I work, we did a very, very extensive research, and they call it the 3-to-1 ratio. Like most people go on there, spammers, and they will just blast all the benefits of their company. Every post is about, let's say, life, right? Like everything that they post is about life. Well, when somebody goes on and that's all they see you as, they probably have the chances of them actually interacting with you are way less. But if you're the type of person that does 3 personal and professional posts to 1 of your company post, they're the type of people love to have conversations with, because you're sharing thought leadership. So you're posting professional, articles. I go on, I might share an Orrin Woodward thing. Then I'm going to go and take a picture of me reading a book and posting it up there. So a 3-to-1 ratio is what they found to be the best for having conversations.
And Anthony, just to ask you about this and kind of to confirm this, personal post does not mean something of you and your wife on your honeymoon. Like it's not about really personal posts, if that makes sense. It's more personal, what you're learning, what you're thinking, like you
right.
said.
Right. Like a quote that, if you go on and you Google quotes and you pull up a quote and throw it on there, or just type something. Yeah. Not like, hey, took my kid to the laundromat today, whatever it happens to be. Yeah.
Yeah. And they can, on the flip side of that, if you took your child somewhere and they said something profound to somebody, and that could be thought leadership. In other words, you just want to be discerning on what you're posting so that it's something that's going to add value to somebody else. That's what you want to do. You want to add value to the people that are going to be reading what you're posting. So, and last thing, but not least, I'm going to make up a little group. You guys know how I did the prayer group where everybody could just click on the link if they wanted to be a part of it. What we're going to do is we're going to do a little LinkedIn group on WhatsApp that I'm not going to add anybody to, but I'll put the link out that anybody that wants to be a part of it and get those notifications and stuff. Because basically, whenever an Anthony Swede is going to be speaking in Philadelphia, for example, or Levi and Lexi are going to be speaking in Grand Rapids, Michigan, or I'm going to go down to Peru in January or whatever, we can put a little push out there and say, hey, for the next 3 weeks, if you can get anybody to show up to the seminar I'm doing in Peru, I'll take care of them and we'll get started, because I'd rather have, 3 different teams tying into a seminar that I'm doing in Peru so I could be a lot more effective than just doing the stuff that I can organically grow there, if that makes sense. And same thing if you're on Anthony's team. If you can blitz an area for Fort Washington Open or for, the Grand Rapids Open or whatever, if you can blitz that and we can use this group to kind of keep that communication going, or any kind of things we're learning from the PDCAs we have going. I don't want it to be going on our big groups because I don't want it to annoy the heck out of all the people that aren't doing anything with LinkedIn. Just the same thing with prayer requests. I love having prayer requests, but it wasn't in the right spot. So now it's beautiful because now it's creating that whole culture of being able to pray in the one side. So anyway, we're going to wrap up with that, but thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time so much and the sacrifice you're taking away tonight to do this. I know you guys all have busy schedules, and we're super excited because this week coming out of this seminar, I know all of you guys are fired, stinking up. A whole bunch of you. I hope to see a whole bunch of you in Leesburg, Virginia, this coming weekend. Flora and I will be up there speaking, and we're super excited about that and just moving forward as a team and making a big difference and making Team Explosion really, really live up to its name.